Hello, and welcome to the Thinking Jew podcast, where we dive deep into Torah and Judaism to uncover its hidden beauty. Come join us as we take a closer look and breathe new life into traditional Jewish ideas. And now, here's your host, Rabbi Moshe Siegel.
Hello, and welcome back to episode 39. I wanted to discuss today a deeper, more Kabbalistic look at the concept of Eruv and the concept of carrying from one domain to a different one, such as from one's house to the public street on Shabbos. An interesting place to start is that when we look through Genesis, the Torah seems to always discuss Shabbos observance through the lens of Eruv. What do I mean? If you look in Genesis chapter 33, verse 18, right after Jacob meets up with Esau and then departs, the Torah tells us that Jacob arrives at the city of Shechem. And the verse says as follows, Vayichon es penei ha'ir, which literally means he encamped before the city. But the Medrash interprets these words to mean that Jacob established an Eruv. And the Medrash brings proof from here that Jacob kept the laws of Shabbos even before they were formally given to the Jews. So we find that the Torah exemplifies Jacob's Sabbath observance through the building and establishing of an Eruv. And again a second time, this one's actually a bit earlier by Abraham. The Torah tells us, and this is in Genesis chapter 26, verse 5, right after God tells Abraham that he will take care of him and bless him with many children and grandchildren. And then God explains why. And God says, this is because Abraham has listened to my voice and observed my commandments, laws, and teachings. And the Medrash interprets these seemingly extraneous words to teach us that Abraham even observed Eruvei Chatzeros. Again, the Torah describes Abraham's Shabbos observance through the lens of the Eruv. It doesn't say he didn't kindle any fires. It doesn't say that he sat down with a cup of wine and made Kiddush. Rather, both by Abraham as well as by Jacob, the Torah uses the concept of Eruv to inform us of their Shabbos observance. And the mystery continues. If you look in the Talmud, in addition to having an entire tractate on the laws of Eruv, if you open up the tractate of Shabbos to the very first page, and you read the very first Mishnah, it discusses the laws of carrying outside on Shabbos between different domains. And the great commentary, the Tosafist, is bothered by this. Why is this the opening statement of the tractate? It would seem to make much more sense to start with the laws of preparing for Shabbos, the laws of Friday afternoon, and include the laws of carrying between domains much later in the tractate on page 73, where it starts discussing the laws of the forbidden actions of Shabbos. Why did the early sages choose to open up the discussion of Shabbos with the laws of carrying on Shabbos and Eruvs? So the great Kabbalist known as Maharal, in discussing Tosfos' question, says an amazing thing. He says that carrying on Shabbos is more defining of Shabbos, as it does not apply on holidays. It's exclusive to Shabbos. While the other prohibitions, such as lighting a fire, sifting, building, even making Kiddush, apply equally on Shabbos and Yontif, this one is exclusive to Shabbos. And Rav Hutner, who was one of the greatest Jewish thinkers of the past generation, passing away in 1980, explains this morale, and he says that the essence of something is always its unique element. It's what distinguishes it from everything else. What's unique to you is what defines you as different from everything else. It's what makes you who you are. So says Rav Hutner, we see from this Maharal that the laws of carrying outside on Shabbos and the laws of Eruvs that come to reconcile that are unique to Shabbos, and therefore they must contain within them the defining essence of what Shabbos really is. So what is that? How does an Eruv express the essence of Shabbos? So I believe the answer can be found in a fascinating conversation between a wicked Roman general named Turnus Rufus and Rabbi Akiva brought in the Medrash. And as always, the sources are brought in the episode notes, so if you'd like to look this up inside, you can find the details there. This Roman general and Rabbi Akiva are discussing Shabbos, and Rabbi Akiva explains to him that even God himself honors Shabbos. And Turnus Rufus responds with a very interesting question. He says, if it's true that God himself honors the Shabbos, he shouldn't blow the winds, he shouldn't let it rain, or even allow grass to grow. These are all prohibited actions on Shabbos. Fascinating question by Turnus Rufus. What does Rabbi Akiva answer? Rabbi Akiva responds as follows. He asks him a question. Classic rabbinic response. Says Rabbi Akiva, if you have two people that share a courtyard, can either of them carry in that courtyard without joining in an Eruv? Obviously not. But if you have an individual that owns a courtyard, he can certainly carry across the whole courtyard whenever he wants to. It's not a joint property. There's no shared area. So too, says Rabbi Akiva, God can do these actions on Shabbos as he functions as the sole owner of the world on Shabbos. The entire world is God's private domain on Shabbos. Rabbi Akiva is teaching us a profound understanding of Shabbos. And unsurprisingly, he's teaching this to us through the lens of Eruv. He's saying that just like everyone can carry in their own house, in their own backyard on Shabbos, even without an Eruv, so too God can blow the winds from one side of the world to the other side, because the entire world is his private domain on Shabbos. Like the holy Rabbi Rav Tzadok of Lublin explains, Kabbalistically, a private domain means it's a place of oneness, one exclusive owner, and unity and oneness always connect to the concept of holiness. But a Rishus Harabim, a public domain, a public area, means that there's multiple owners, which is the opposite of godliness. It's that which associates to the physical world, that which appears disconnected and multiplicitous. On a deeper level, what Rabbi Akiva was saying is that Hashem started as a complete simple unity. But during the 6 days of creation, he extended himself outwards, leaving his place of simple unity and extending into a world of riboy, a world of multiplicity, of differentiation, of distinction. But then comes the seventh day, then comes Shabbos. And on Shabbos, the whole world returns back and reunites with its source. It comes back to this oneness. It goes from being a place of many, a makom of rabim, a public domain, to a rishus hayachid, to an individually owned domain of oneness of God. The whole idea of an Eruv is that it takes a public space, a shared courtyard, or even an entire city, and it converts that public space and shows how there's really only one owner. It unifies everything into a rishus hayachid, into a private domain. And that, my friends, is the essence of what Shabbos is all about. Shabbos is when the entire world leaves its confusion and its multiplicity and returns to the source of unity and godliness. This is why I believe we find that the Torah exemplifies Shabbos observance through the Eruv. The Eruv is that which is unique to Shabbos. It's not the same as on holidays, because the Eruv represents the ability to take a world that seems like there's so many different powers influencing it, that seems like it's a public domain, and it converts that into a private domain, a Rishus HaYachid. It shows that there really is only one owner of that whole space, one who understands that there really is only one owner of our world, and as much as we can't always see it, everything really comes back to this oneness of God. A person who can understand that understands what Shabbos is really all about. I give us all a blessing that we should see God in our lives and recognize how this world truly is completely owned and governed by God in a simple unity. And with that, I wish everyone a wonderful Shabbos.
Thank you for listening to the Thinking Jew podcast and for taking the time to study Torah and deepen your connection to Judaism. If you found value in today's episode, please leave us a rating or review and subscribe to the podcast. If you have any questions, comments, or topic requests for Rabbi Moshe, please email thethinkingjewpodcast@gmail.com or visit thethinkingjew.com.